This is the second generation Gerber Aquasaver toilet, introduced sometime around circa 1995 and was made all the way up until 2003 when the Aquasaver was discontinued.
Hi, future me here. This is not the final generation of Gerber Aquasaver. There's actually a third generation that was introduced after in 2002, which most of us thought was the first generation Gerber Maxwell. Which is not true, by the way. It's the third generation Gerber Aquasaver. But these clips were recorded before the fact that I knew that, so there you go. I just needed to issue that correction before we move on. Anyways, back to the video.
So the first generation was the front flusher generation, and that was a pretty mixed bag. Unfortunately, this toilet is no different, even though it's not a front flusher. But let's take a look at it. The overall design is pretty much the same as the first generation, except the base is a lot different. It has a rounded base instead of a flat square base, and the trapway is completely redone, as you can see here. Trapway itself looks okay from this side. Trapway opening, on the other hand, is very questionable. As you can see, it's a circular opening and has a siphon jet down towards the bottom, this V shape. Tank parts are pretty standard. As you can see, it's got a ball cock fill valve, a replacement handle, and a normal flapper. Pretty standard stuff, but they seem to work fairly well, so I can't really complain. And even then, if they have problems, they can be interchanged easily, which is nice. Now let's have a look at a flush. The flush itself is just okay. Want to know what else is okay? The pulling factor. It seems serviceable enough, although it could be a little bit better. It really depends on what kind of flush you get with this. This one has a fairly long flush, so it pretty much has a pretty long pulling factor, but it also seems a little bit weak as well. But hey, it could be worse. Performance, on the other hand, seems to be different between different people. Very similar to the first generation. It's just a mixed bag. The trapway itself looks to be perfectly fine, but the opening is kind of what messes it up. It's kind of small and not really a lot of area to get things done, although I haven't really had any problems with these similar to the first generation. But performance definitely could have been improved a lot better. It's just, Here's a look at bowl runs. Seems to be pretty alright itself. It's definitely better than the first generation for sure, which had pretty crap ball runs. As you can see, it has angled rounders, which does help out, but I feel like it could be a little bit better, but definitely a lot better than the first generation for sure. And that is the second generation Gerber Aquasaver toilet. Definitely an interesting toilet, but still kind of questionable quality like the first generation. Some qualities are definitely improved a little bit, but others, not so much. But let's grade it.
In comparison to the first generation, I definitely think the second generation Gerber Aquasaver looks a lot better, so I give it a 6. Like the first generation, the parts are perfectly fine and nothing more than that. They're serviceable, although I will say I definitely don't care for ball cocks all that much, personally. But overall, I give it a 6. While the quality control is improved compared to the first generation, I'd still say it's pretty mixed, mostly due to its flushing style, as well as the performance aspects being pretty mixed. With that being said, I give the quality control a 5. From the outside, the trapway actually looks a lot better compared to the first generation, and looks a lot larger. Then you see the trapway opening and all hope is thrown out the window. While it's definitely a lot better than you probably might expect, it's still not a good sign, so I have to give the trapway a 4. The flush is okay. I definitely like the swirly flush that it has, although I will say the ending part with the siphoning is a little bit questionable. I do not like how rapidly siphonic it is, and it reminds me of the first and second generation Ultra Patriot toilets, which is not something you want to remind me of. But overall, I give the flush a 6. The pull and siphon are a little bit mixed as well. Due to the choppy siphon, I definitely think that it could impact how well it pulls things down, although I will say, due to the longevity of some of these siphons, I don't think it should be as bad, but it's not a great look overall, and definitely could have been improved upon. I give the pull and siphon a 5. The performances are pretty mixed overall. The round ball versions perform pretty bad, while the elongated versions and the covered height one performs okay at most. Compared to the first generation, it's a lot more consistent, but it's still pretty mixed at the end of the day, and I have to give it a 5. The bowrings is okay. While it does have angled rim jets, I definitely think the bowrings could have been applied a little bit better in some particular areas, but it's not too terrible compared to the first generation, which had crap bowrings, so I give it a 6. Like the first generation Gerber Aquasaver toilets, these things seem to hold up alright. These things actually do last a good little bit of time and rarely get replaced, but due to some of the aspects, at most I have to give it a 6. Well, you thought the first generation Gerber Aquasaver was a mixed bag. Well, the second generation is an even more mixed bag. Although I definitely think some qualities have definitely improved, there are still some aspects that are pretty mixed. The performance, the pulling factor, and sometimes even other things like the flush and bowrings are still pretty mixed. While I definitely think some aspects are better than the first generation, the toilet is still a mixed bag, and that's not something you want to rely on so much. Overall, I definitely think there's some aspects that are improved, but others that definitely could have been worked on. For the value, I give it a 5. The final score of the second generation Gerber Aquasaver toilet is a 54 out of 100. This toilet is definitely the epitome of a mixed bag. While some aspects are definitely improved compared to the first generation, it's still a mixed bag at the end of the day. I definitely think some aspects definitely could have been improved upon, but at the end of the day, I guess it could have been worse. Still though, it could have been a lot better.